5 days have passed since the latest mini set came out, so now we can really see what the best decks in Hearthstone are right now. Honestly, the video is not gonna be much different from the one I gave you 2 days after the mini set came out, but still, we are seeing a little bit of movements in the decks, as well as them being a little bit more refined than what we saw the first time, so in this video I'll give you 5 of the best decks in Hearthstone right now, show you their mulligans, win rates, as well as some general tips, so you have a better idea of how to play with and against those decks. And we're also gonna check out all of the other working archetypes for each individual class, so stick around to the end. If you're serious about Hearthstone, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget you can hang for some Hearthstone coaching. Now, let's check out the decks.
You are not prepared!
The first deck on the list is gonna be Hand of Paladin this time, and it was on the list last time. This variant is a little bit different though, we are actually running the mining package again, and we're also having some interesting things like Observer of Mysteries, which do buy you a little bit of extra time so you can actually equip your weapon undisturbed, because the couple of secrets usually make the opponent kinda pass their next turn. We also have a couple of Glacial Shards, which is an interesting inclusion, I'm assuming mainly for the Pain Warlock matchup, so you can freeze some of them 8/8s. The Drone Deconstructor is definitely very nice, you get to buff all of those 1/1 magnetized mechs like that, and you could use them later on, still on the Drone Deconstructor if it lives long enough, or even on your big ass Zilliax, which can also work pretty well. The Zillion here is a perfect module plus discount module so you can stabilize early, and the rest of the deck looks pretty standard stuff, if we're calling the Mining Excavation package standard nowadays. You still have a Musclotron in here, and we also have a Grim Street Outfitter. We're not running the South Sea Deckhands, and we don't even have a Leroy in here, so you rely solely on sticking some big boards turn after turn, well, so that the opponent can stop answering at some point. We don't even have no Melia in this one, which feels a little bit interesting, but all around the deck is definitely doing very nicely, and it's actually the best deck from Diamond to Legend with above 1000 games. Match-wise, we don't really have that much stats going, but you should be doing well against most of the classes out there, apparently against Spell Mage especially. As for the mulligan, here's what the stats show going first, and no, we're not really going to be keeping this. Let's go with the kept rates instead, because apparently it doesn't have as much stats as we'd like to. And all around you're trying to curve out, basically get the Drone Deconstructor, the Instrument deck, Grim Street Outfitter is okay, it's not super amazing going first because you're not really going to have that many cards to buff, but it's still something to think about. Cobalt Miner ain't bad, Musclotron's fine, not too bad to have 1/1 drop. If you don't have the Instrument deck, you can take your weapon as well. Observer of Mysteries is also not the worst thing in the world. And all around, that's about it for what you're going to be looking for, unless you're against a very aggressive matchup. In that case, Dagger's Plushie might also make a case. As for on the coin, the situation is not that different. Here even Magata makes a little bit more sense. And again, depending on the matchup, Dagger's Plushie and Glacial Shard might be a consideration. Like if you're against a Warlock, you're probably going to want probably even both of those. On the number 2 spot, we also have Flood Paladin, and that's also doing insanely well right now. And I did tell you about the variant with Flint and Hearthstone Brew last time, and this time that is actually the best performing variant. We're talking about marginal differences, but yeah, right now this seems to be the best variant for Flood Pally. And everything else is basically standard stuff. We're not running Hand of a Doll in this one, so you have a lot less holy spells. It's only down to a Boogie Down plus a couple of Crusader Auras. So you're no longer running the aura drawing guy, you still have a couple of Hi-Hos though. We also have Therum in here, which is a little bit on the weird side, but you can definitely deal with some big men like that. Hearthstone Brew can give you a basically secondary game plan if the first one doesn't pan out. And we still have Zilly with discount and +1/+1, which is obvious for this archetype. Again, you can check out my detailed guide about this one as well as my coaching sessions with it, so you have a better idea of how to play with it. And in terms of matchups, as you can see, only Highlander Warrior is a bit iffy, and even that's not that bad a matchup, because if you manage to tempo out a couple of Giants early, they don't really have that hard removal that early. As for the mulligan, here's what the stats show. Going first, here's what it's looking like. And it's gonna come down to what you already have, and it's gonna come down to what you're playing against. Like, Showdown can be insanely good against board-centric matchups, not so much against control matchups, but even against control matchups, if you have let's say Zilliax, let's say the Giant, you might actually consider something along those lines, because you could even drop something like a turn 2 Showdown with a 0-mana Zilliax, and that's basically a bunch of 4/1s. That's gonna value trade his free freeze basically, and you still get left with a free 5 Zilly on the board as well as a 1-drop. The opponent's also probably gonna have a 1-drop, because how else are you gonna drop a 0-mana Zilly? At least for when going first, that is. Muster can be a consideration. Don't keep more than one good one drop. You don't really want to keep too many. That's what we have Boogie Down for, so that can thin it out. And yeah, all around, be smart about how you mulligan. As for on the coin, you're not going to be keeping a Midas, obviously. Nobody is. Very weird stats. Zilly can definitely be a great hold here, especially with Showdown in hand already. Flash Sale might be okay, wouldn't really hold on to it if I already don't have a pretty much perfect hand. Gold Banner's fine, a good one drop like Salesman, Boogie Down's fine. And the rest, again, you gotta have a good reason to consider. Prismatic Beam might also be a keep, especially if you already have a Showdown, and honestly same can be said for a Sea Giant, but be smart about who you keep it against, because in order to drop a 0-mana Sea Giant, you need to have 4 more minions on the board in order to get things going with the Showdown. For other good Pally decks, that's basically it. Nothing but hand and Flood Pallies out there. These are the 2 lists I showed you. And yeah, they're doing insanely well, like 62, 63, almost 64% win rate with tons of games. We also have the non-mining variant for hand buff Pally, and I did see Highlander Pally before, but right now that doesn't really exist. Well, it does exist, it's just Sparse data is it's called. Yeah, here it is. It's actually doing... No, that ain't it. What am I talking about? I guess it's on number page 2. Yeah, here's one. Decent sample size. Okay, win rate. So if you really want to be playing a inferior Paladin list right now, I guess Highlander is still pretty playable. Like, this is actually better than most classes. But it's far from the optimal variance for Paladin now, isn't it? On the number 3 spot, we obviously still have Pain Warlock. It's doing insanely well, and this looks pretty much the same list as I showed you on the last coaching session. We are running a couple of Cult Neophytes instead of the Speaker Stompers. Honestly, the difference between the 2 lists is marginal, so whichever you prefer, heck, you could even slap one of each and feel okay about it. Like, obviously, the Cult Neophyte curves out for you better. You can fit it in while doing other things, whereas the other one probably makes sure the opponent doesn't do anything with spells next turn, so that's also kind of cool. It has Treadable on it, which is not super big sell for this deck, because you have tons of card draw with some of that ass production. But you get it, basically. It is a little bit more flexible to use. Other than that, the deck is very standard stuff. Again, check out my guides, my sessions, everything you need to know about this deck. I got you covered, fam. Matchup-wise, here's what the stats show, and Flood Pally is definitely on the iffy side, but it's far from an impossible matchup. Like, all you gotta do is just not go super wide against them. Try to go taller, you know, like, try to get yourself some 8/8 giants, not copy a bunch of 2/2s or heck, even 4/4s. So try to keep a narrow board, like no more than 3, max 4 minions, and 4 is actually very sketchy at that point, and you should be doing fine in this matchup as well. As for the mulligans, here's what the stats show going first. Mass production is great, Elemental Geode is fine, Flame Imp is great, Blood Treant. If you already have some damaging stuff, you could also hold on to the Giant. I wouldn't personally hold on to it without already having at least 1 good damaging card. And Imprisoned Horror is usually an okay keep as well. Malefic Rook is great. Celestial Projectionist, I think it's a little bit far-fetched going first. Like, you need a little bit of extra gas for that to start happening for you going first. Going second maybe, but going first is just a little bit too much wishful thinking. As for on the coin, here's what the stats show. Celestial a bit more keepable here if you ask me. Infernal, kind of weird to hold on to it straight up, but it could make some sense. And again, here Molten Giant and Imprisoned become even more MVP. Card draw and Blood Treant, still amazing. For other good Warlock decks right now, Insanity Warlock is still out there. We have tons of iterations of Pain Warlock as well. The Ziliax is basically Divine Shield plus -1. This is the list I showed you. This apparently is a +1, -1. It's kind of a weirder list. It also runs things like Trolley Problem and whatnot, so there's that. I mean, so does this one, what am I talking about? But yeah, this one is going a little bit weird. I think the heal package is a bit more important for you in most cases. Insanity Warlock is still out there, not much stats, decent win rate though. And yeah, we also have Mining Warlock scraping at the bottom, 53%. Not that bad, but far from amazing as you can see. There's also some other weird things at the bottom, nothing to write home about. Next up, we still have Zarimi Priest. Really nothing new to talk about. It's probably the exact same list I showed you from the last top 5. It's still doing quite fine, but the problem is it's not doing well against Pain Warlocks as well as Flood Pallies, so I don't even know how it's doing well right now. Like, that's usually at least 50% of your matchups. And above those matchups are gonna feel terrible for you because they just tempo out a lot faster than you do nowadays, and you don't have enough time to really get the ball rolling. The deck is still very powerful, and I'm assuming this deck is gonna dodge the nerfs right now, whereas Pallies and Warlocks should be getting slapped real soon. And this deck is gonna be the next big thing again, I'm assuming, so definitely don't sleep on it. You might want to give it a go. You might even do pretty well with it right now, honestly, but as I said, the matchups for it are just not that amazing. Flood Pally unfavored, Pain Warlock unfavored, everything else pretty green. But the deck is far from simple, so there's that as well. Mulligan-wise, here's what it looks like going first. And it's a really tricky deck to be mulliganing for. Again, you can check out my guides and gameplay videos with it. It's a tricky deck to mulligan for because you gotta know what you're working with already. Like, if you already have a Crimson Clergy, you could even keep a Dreamboat. The Power Chord is something you can keep if you already have something good already, like a Clergy, like a Dragon, something along those lines. Pip can be an interesting keep. Whelp Wrangler is usually fine. Scale Replica is not bad, but you usually want to be tempoing out a little bit more before you actually spend 2 mana to do basically nothing on the board. Maggot I wouldn't really hold on to. Same with Zarimi. Funnel Cake can be pretty good with the Crimson Clergy, but it's something you're going to really fully maximize your potential with on turn 3, so there's that as well. Ship's Children is not that bad, it's a dragon as well, so not sure why it's this bad on the stats, and Gift Wrapped is also pretty fine. As for On the Coin, it's not much different, really. Ziliax is gonna be the -1/+1 for everything, right? And again, it's really gonna come down to what you already have. We're actually running Fly Off the Shelves on this one, which is a weird inclusion, but I guess you can use it for some removal, especially against things like Flood Pally, that's gonna work. But yeah, all around that's it for the Priest deck. For other good Priest decks out there, Highlander Priest is also out there again, but really nothing that amazing. Oh wow, maybe it is actually kinda amazing. This is a small sample size obviously, but somebody knew what they were doing. So there is something to tinker with Highlander Priest again, it seems. Here's another variant, 55. It's actually respectable stats, man. Should I be worried? But yeah, here are the more populated lists. Not as amazing stats, but there's definitely a light at the end of that tunnel, huh? And lastly, we actually have Spell Mage doing quite fine. According to the stats, it's also doing quite fine in Top Legend. And the main selling point for this deck right now, it's doing well against Pain Warlocks. It's actually quite good at sniping off the Warlocks while freezing their big stuff. You can basically OTK them as soon as they drop themselves down to 10, 15, that kind of deal. And this particular list, it looks pretty standard stuff. I showed you this list not long ago. Again, you can check out my games with it. And yeah, you basically have a lot of burn stuff, a lot of control stuff, and a lot of card draw. You can also generate a bunch of minions with the help of the weapon, with the help of spot difference, and you can also discount a ton with the help of manufacturing error. You could do some serious OTK damage with the help of Elemental Companion because you could get the discount idiot or the +2 spell power idiot. And if you actually get this down to 0 with the help of manufacturing error, it becomes a lot easier for you to actually do tons of damage very quickly. Heatwave helps you against wide boards, Frostbolts help you against narrow boards, Malfunction is insanely strong, and it actually receives double spell power because it gets improved both on the first half and the second half, so if you get +2 spell damage, that's gonna be 10 damage, not 6. More like not 8, but whatever. And yeah, all around the deck is very, very interesting, so you could check it out. Matchup-wise, here's what the stats show. Come on, figure it out. There you go. And wow, we actually have a ton of stats in here, and this is in Legends. Interesting. Miracle is not gonna be your friend. Zarimi is not great. Hand Buff is actually the worst matchup for you. From Flood Pally, I mean. It's also iffy against Warlocks, but as I said, it's great against Pain Warlocks, not so much against Insanity, however. From Diamond to Legend, I guess this is even more populated. Some Druids are not going to be great, Secret Hunter is iffy, but yeah, all around you get the idea. As for the mulligan, here's what the stats show. Going first, weapon, spot the difference, manufacturing a little bit wishful thinking, honestly. Malfunction is usually a great idea in most cases. Primordial Glyph ain't bad, so you can actually draw Light Show through the help of the Stargazing. Yeah, Flame Geyser can also be a consideration here if you are feeling like it's going to be able to kill some early game tempo for the opponent. As for On the Coin, it's basically the same stuff. For other good mage decks, what other good mage decks? There's really not that much going. Elemental Mage apparently is actually something worth checking out. It's basically a free deck as well. So yeah, there's definitely something to work with here. Rainbow Mage is scraping at the bottom as well. Very small sample size, mediocre win rate, name a more iconic duo. And the rest is really not worth looking at. There's also some wonky variants that go with the random bullshit Fiesta. I hate those decks and I'm happy to see them at the bottom. That's it for the top 5. Let's see for the classes we haven't mentioned, starting off with Death Knight. Plague Decay is at the top with a small sample size. Hand Buff is also at a close second with an even smaller sample size. The bigger sample size variants are having a lot more modest win rates. 55 for Rainbow with 1500 games. Plague Decay, these are again very small. The first populated list has 1600 games and 52% win rate, so definitely not amazing. There's also apparently Highlander Death Knight out there. Here's the list. 53% win rate, not that amazing. 54. So yeah, these together make about 1000. The biggest sample size is no, that's not even bigger, so kind of whatever. But yeah, Rainbow and Plague seem to be the best bet still, at least with the big sample size for now for Dick. As for Demon Hunter, Shopper Demon Hunter is still doing pretty well actually. The variant with the Glacial Shard is again gonna be pretty decent against things like Pain Warlocks, but honestly I think you should be fine against Pain Warlocks because you do pack a mean punch. You could actually deal tons of damage to them if they try to pull a fast one on you. Aggro Demon Hunter, it's up there, but not by much. With Druids, Hybrid Druids at the top, small sample size though, so Highlander Druid is a bit better. I did show you my take on Highlander Druid. It was similar to this one, not very, but something along those lines. Here's the biggest sample size Hybrid Druid, basic hero power Druid with a bunch of swipes and whatnot. Treant Druid is, it looks promising honestly, but so far it seems to be not as amazing because there's just too much AoE it seems. Like Showdown Pallies are going to be wrecking you. Warlocks are probably going to be too quick for you. Like it is kind of iffy for it right now. Maybe after the nerfs it might pick up a bit, but I'm not really sure. Like after the nerfs I feel like more control might pop out, so that's probably going to be even worse for it. Dragon Druid is also up there, but really not by much. So yeah, all around probably Highlander and Hero Power Druid are your best bets. With Hunters, Highlander Hunter is actually doing fine on several different iterations, including one with secrets, which looks kind of interesting. Yeah, this one maybe. But it is definitely looking kind of all over the place. We also have Spell Token Hunter still doing fine. I have no idea why people still run Barracuda Bane. Like, can somebody shed some light on this? Like, are people really liking drawing 2 cards at the price of a free 5 mediocre 5-drop? Like, seriously? We also have Secret Hunter up there. Just gotta look for it a little. Yeah, here's one very big sample size, decent-ish win rate. I've tried this in Top Legend, it's just not cut out for it. Like, people there just know how to play around the secrets, so on lower ranks you can definitely have fun with this one, but not from where I'm from. Moving down with Rogues, Miracle Rogue seems to be doing quite fine. There's also Mining Rogue still up there, Sonya Rogue is up there, a lot of different iterations of Rogues out there. They're all very high skill cap, but not very decent. It seems like people are trying to make it work. It does work tremendously well in some games, tremendously horrible in others, so there's that. And we have also Shaman. Highlander Shaman seems to be doing best. We actually have tons of games with it, but it's very close to a 55% win rate, so not exactly amazing. Nature Shaman apparently is still usable. Again, very small sample size, mediocre win rate. So all around right now, Shaman has seen better days. And lastly, we have Warrior. I could have just as easily included a Highlander Warrior in this top 5 because the Spell Mage actually had similar win rates. Gotta be honest, the first 3 decks have a lot more win rate than the other. The last 2, especially the last one, is around 56. So the first 3 decks are the really top dogs in the meta right now. But Highlander Warrior seems to be still doing fine. Very close to what we're used to from the past. And tons of different iterations for it too. Odin Warrior is kind of back on the block it seems. Very small sample size but very big win rate, so that helps. There's also some dummy warriors out there, like basically mech warriors, that can also do some weird shit from time to time, but it's kind of a pipe dream so far, doesn't seem to be very consistent. So that's going to be for this top 5, guys. Hope this helps you figure out what you want to be playing in the new mini set meta. If you enjoyed the video and like what I'm doing, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget you can hire me for some Hearthstone coaching. Thanks for watching. I'm Kris05, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.